Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me at the Alienated Dads Network. On today's video, we are looking at domestic abuse and educating the men out there. It's about, we know how difficult it is, not just to be a man, but to be a man and not be domestically abusive. I mean, that's why folks do what they do. Your relationship can be and will be turned into, what can we say it? Turned into being a constant battlefield, a constant war, a domestic war. That's what your relationship can be turned into. Domestically abusive, even when it wasn't. And only when she wants it to be, when she's had enough. First things first, I suppose, I need to do some housekeeping. Must apologise, my video upload has been pretty shit recently. Been extremely busy with a number of service users, and so I do want to apologise for that. This content may not be the greatest, but we're going to get warmed up again, so stick with it, and you'll definitely be educated, because what I'm going to be doing is that this is an opening for our educating men on domestic abuse and family court. So let's crack on, shall we? Let's just crack on and see where we go. So you join me here now, back from, I could probably edit this bit, I suppose we could do. Join me in a hotel in Torquay, obviously. It's gonna be hours. It was hours. I'm back home now, back by the office, back in the desk, back in the Apple What's It HQ. But I've been working and working and working. So anyway, where are we at? So firstly, right, I've been working with a few people who are obviously so miserable and so sad because of what they're going through. It's not easy. It absolutely is not easy. But one thing that keeps coming up is they keep saying, oh, well, I'm not abusive. I'm not abusive. But what do you mean you're not abusive? You've told me you've called her this. You've told me you've called her that. So I want to educate people, not just if there's people struggling with that, and I know I was as well, so I want to educate people. So that's what we're going to do. There's going to be a whole series of videos that I'm making because of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to be making these videos, going to be 7 to 10 seconds long, short little videos, because attention span for us men, obviously, because we're all terrible people and we're all we're not very clever, so we have to have short videos to make sure we can hold our attention that much, because we're all violent ogres and we're all terrible people. Clearly. So up until this point, I had a bit of like writer's block, you could say, as well, because I didn't know what videos to do or if it was even worth doing it, because I don't know if anyone watches this shit anyway. But it's not shit. I think it's quite valuable. But anyway, not only that, it helps with me with my own sort of therapy, and it's my counselling, because I'm talking to a phone, and whoever wants to watch it and get something from this, then you can, and you do, and you will. But anyway, so yeah, we've got men saying that, I'm not confessing to being an abuser. I'm not an abuser. I'm not this, I'm not that. Did you ever call her a bitch? Yeah. Did you ever argue with her, made your voice her? Yeah. She did it only because she did this to me. Only because she's done that to me. So yeah, it's reactive abuse. It's reacting. You're reacting. That doesn't make it okay. What? It's okay that you react to that. So what you're saying? Okay. Your child is upstairs in the cot, sleeping. You didn't react. She's shouting. You're shouting at you. She's shouting at you. You react. And because you react, you're now part of the problem. It's not about what she's done to you. It's about how you react and how you can control your emotions, how you can deal with your emotions in the heat of the matter. And this is for you men who've ever, this. I've got a story for you. Put this into context, right? Imagine this, right? Imagine this. This is based on a true story, myself. Have you ever had the biggest shit in the world ever, right? The biggest shit in the world, and you've left it in the toilet. I mean, you're sitting there, you finish your shit, and you're like, Jesus Christ, I lost a couple of pounds there. And then literally, and it's because your arse is in so much pain because you've just given birth to this log. You leave it there, you're in so much pain, you get yourself sorted out. And then what you do is you leave it there, you forget it's there. You forget it's there all day, and you're working from home. And then your missus comes home, your wife comes home. You've forgotten that there's a massive log in the toilet. She goes up to the toilet, she sees it there, she calls your name, Jason, you can't come here. So you're like, what's up, darling, what have I done now here? She lifts up the toilet lid. What's this? Oh, yeah, that was the biggest shit I ever did. Look, it's made. I should have flushed the chain. Toilet gets blocked. While the toilet gets blocked, and rising water. And she's standing there going berserk, shouting at you, shouting. And the water's rising. She can't see the water's rising. And I'm like, she's too busy shouting at me, Jason, you fucking man. And literally, the water's rising, and as it rises, it goes onto her white jeans. And it's not very good. So obviously this is a moment, yeah? So then she's like going really, really crazy. She fucking starts attacking you. She jumps, she's like a panther. She jumps on top of you. And you bastard. And that's what she's doing, right? That's what she's doing. And it's like, okay, fine. So you're getting beaten up. Right, no. That's all happened. You get beaten up. You get the plumber out. The plumber gets fucking sorted. Somehow, you're still together, right? You're putting up with that shit. She hasn't spoken to you for like 2 weeks. You're sleeping on the sofa. And then suddenly you get paid. So she wants some money. So she's nice to you again. She realises, oh, she's getting paid this week. Better start giving her some love. So you have makeup sex. Now, I'm not saying you should do this, but this is what happened. So you have makeup sex. And we used to have that makeup sex all the time. It was good while having makeup sex. So afterwards, that was a problem. But anyway. So you have the makeup sex. Everything's all cool. 5 years go on. 5 years later, you thought, fuck this shit. She's got herself another man. You're over. It's finished. So you're going through family courts. This incident that I've just described comes up. The turd in the toilet. So you discuss it, but then you're the one who's got beaten up. You've got the photos to prove it. You've been beaten up. You've got scratches, bruises. This is 5 years ago. Doesn't know important now. No. She's told her. She said that it's all your fault. I mean, how is this my fault? You didn't flush the toilet seat. How many times in the past did she told you to flush the toilet seat? Many, and you didn't. That's abusive. You didn't listen to her. She knew she doesn't like the toilet seat. You should have listened. That's abusive. You did that on purpose. You knew it was going to wind her up. That's not true at all. You didn't know it was going to wind her up. You didn't do that on purpose. It just happened. You forgot to flush the toilet seat. It's minor. But she turned it into something that it wasn't because she wanted to leave you. So she turned it, escalated it up to that way. Can you see where you went wrong there, Mr. Appleyard? Can you see where you could have done a little bit more? Shit, mate, I just forgot the toilet. I forgot to flush the toilet. I didn't warrant all that. But you can see where you could have gone to... No, I can't. The correct answer is yes. Yes, I can see where I've gone wrong. She's constantly telling me to put the toilet seat down or lift it up or whatever the case might be. No, I kept doing it. I kept forgetting. So I can, yes, see how that was domestically abusive. If she perceives that as being abusive, it caused her emotional harm and psychological harm, seeing the turd that big. I can accept that's her feelings, and I do see that. I do. At the time, I didn't see that at all. I didn't say, yeah, because I said she's being stupid. But it was abusive because I didn't take into consideration her feelings and wasn't listening to her. Now, this is quite an extreme analogy based on a true story. Try to understand this, yeah, because people will get this misinterpreted. Just because you don't perceive yourself to be abusive, that doesn't mean that you're not abusive. Why do you think I try and avoid finding of facts hearings? Because a finding of facts hearing it's only going to slaughter each other more. It's only going to slag each other off more. It's only going to bring up more negative feelings, more negative connotations. That's what it's going to do. And family courts don't like that. They don't want you to reconcile. They want you to move forward. When you go to a family court and say, you're not abusive, I take responsibility for what I did, but it's because of her and you because of him. It doesn't want to impact your children or behaviours, no? It's you and your partner. That's you're arguing with. That's who you're arguing with. You two together, and that's your problem. That's you. So you can't blame that away and push that aside. You both having an argument, and it's domestic abuse. You're both guilty. Especially if there's a child upstairs. Especially if you've got children. Especially if you've got children, because you just have to argue. You don't even have to argue. You can have to let the atmosphere in the air, and that's abusive. So reactive abuse, let's just talk about this. Reactive abuse refers to situations where a victim of prolonged abuse reacts in a way that could be construed as abusive. This reaction is often a response to ongoing manipulation, coercion, control or harm. And while it may seem aggressive, it stems from the victim's own attempts to defend themselves more than anything else, or cope with the abuse that they've been entailing. Now, this isn't always going to be easy for them. No. Is it okay? Is reactive abuse okay? No, it's not okay. Especially if you're a man. But what I want to do now is I want to get you a number of examples of reactive abuse, just so you've got a little bit of a context behind it and a bit of an understanding. Hitting in defence. Now, striking out in self-defence during a physical abuse may be labelled as reactive abuse. Are you going to get in trouble for that? Yes, you are. Especially if it's a woman. Destroying property, smashing objects up and frustration after being emotionally tormented is reactive abuse. Silent treatment, withdrawing into silence as a reaction to emotional manipulation, can be viewed as reactive abuse. Threatening to leave the relationship after prolonged control can be seen as reactive abuse. Public outbursts, having a public outburst, an emotional breakdown in public after private abuse may be seen as reactive abuse. Throwing things in frustration after enduring mental abuse can be viewed as reactive abuse. Blocking communication, cutting off communication after persistent harassment might be considered reactive abuse. Withholding affection in response to manipulation could be seen as reactive abuse. Accusing the abuser of their behaviour after being gaslighted might be labelled as reactive abuse. Physical retaliation, pushing or hitting back in response to ongoing physical abuse is often seen as reactive abuse. Demanding personal space aggressively after being suffocated by control can be reactive abuse. Breaking down, crying and screaming uncontrollably as a reaction to psychological abuse can be perceived as reactive abuse. Defensive lying to protect oneself after continuous manipulation might be seen as reactive abuse. Reacting to triggers, overreacting to minor incidents due to a build-up of trauma is sometimes considered and viewed as reactive abuse. Blaming the abuser for the relationship issues in response to being constantly blamed and being constantly blamed can be seen as reactive abuse. Mimicking the abuser's tactics in a desperation after prolonged abuse can be viewed as reactive abuse. Substance abuse, turning into drugs and alcohol, self-medication as a coping mechanism might be seen as a form of reactive abuse. Escalating arguments in response to provocation might be labelled as reactive abuse. Self-harm to yourself, you're threatening yourself, you're harming yourself. Threatening self-harm to cope with emotional abuse can be viewed as reactive abuse. Isolation as retaliation. Isolating oneself from the abuser as a form of retaliation can be seen as reactive abuse. Aggressive, reacting defensively with aggression after being attacked verbally might be considered reactive abuse. Cheating, engaging in infidelity in response to emotional neglect or abuse can be seen as reactive abuse. Publicly exposing the abuser Abuser's actions after long-term abuse may be held as or labelled as reactive abuse. These are just a few examples of how I illustrate and the importance of understanding what abusive people is and what it is and how to avoid it. These reactions are crucial to recognising the complexities of abusive relationships and the dynamics at play. Reactive abuse is a complex and sensitive issue, nuanced perspective on whether it's okay. Now, contact prolonged abuse. Reactive abuse typically occurs in the context of prolonged abuse and severe abuse where the victim reaches a breaking point. It's a defensive reaction rather than a premeditated act of harm, often spurred by the desperation of the attempt to reclaim some sort of sense of control or dignity. Emotional and psychological impact. Now this here is where victims of prolonged abuse often suffer emotional and psychological distress, which can drive them to react in ways they wouldn't normally. These reactions are often impulsive and stem from a place of intense fear, frustration, and or helplessness. Ethical considerations, legal considerations. Legally, like being both legal aid funded is never going to happen. Having one legal aid funded and you not being legal aid funded, not a problem. You don't need a solicitor. Ethically, while it's understandable why victims might need a certain way to guide them, it doesn't excuse harmful behaviour. It's important to, how can you put it? It's important to find ways of coping with this stuff. Now, engaging in reactive abuse can perpetrate a cycle of violence, complicating efforts to resolve abusive relationship, and the safety it can also escalate to game-changing outcomes for all people involved. And that would impact yourself personally, myself personally, and your children. We can't help this though, can we? If you're going to go down that road, that was. Counselling, offers support groups and legal aid can provide tools and strategies for managing these emotions and breaking from the absolute norm. Reactive abuse in human form is extreme stress, basically. It's prolonged mistreatment, and it's not healthy in any way, shape or form. Effective to handle anyway. You can't handle any situation in this way when you're in that mood. I'm not even hungry these days. That's the problem. That's the point. But we can always strive forward. We always strive forward. Strive forward for being non-violent way of communicating, non-violent way of co-parenting, just a healthy way of living for you, your family, and your children, even as separated parents. It is possible. I've seen it done. I see it done. I see it done at least once a month now.